Hello and welcome to the Hash Rugby Chat brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby opinion and predictions. And don't worry, yes, Super Rugby is back, and so before the night is through, my Super Rugby predictions will be out. So look out for those. They are coming. Now, joining me this evening, we have none other than Herman and Ashwin. How are you doing, sirs?
I'm all well, Paul.
And Ashwin very squeaky, obviously, has been...
But it's squeaky bum bum time now. So it's...
Yeah.
Oh, dearie me. So...
How do you say that in Indian dialect? It's squeaky bum bum time.
No. Oh, he's putting his full kerns on.
Yes, he is. Dear me. No. So...
Eyes a mile offside.
You are a mile offside, yes, absolutely. Red card for Herman, off you go. So this week on the Hash Rugby Chat, we will be talking about international rugby. We'll be talking about our favourite moments of the weekend. We'll say who are the winners and losers of the June internationals. We will then also look forward to the Super Rugby, which kicks off again this coming weekend, and say who is going to make the finals and remind ourselves of the standings and the games that are to come. We will also talk about Argentina's losing streak and their coach resigning. So there's a gap there. Who's going to fill that, and what's been the problem in Argentina? And then finally, if we have time, because notoriously we obviously are always running with spare time and with time left over, we will get on to the question that's been there for a couple of weeks now. Isn't the whole idea of rugby to cheat? So, kicking us off, what was your moment from the weekend? And as Ashwin is typing away, chatting to the folks in the live chat, Herman, we'll kick off with you.
Oh, it's a little bit tricky. It's not like super straightforward because there weren't not like any real stand-up moments for me. But I would say, as a whole, I would think like Ireland winning the series in Australia sort of confirm that they are the clear number 2 in the world right now. And after an outstanding season, I have to say on the last 15 tests, Ireland have only lost 1. And even the All Blacks would be proud with stats like that. So Ireland's confirmation of being the second best team in the world, that's my stand-up moment from the weekend.
Ashwin?
Oh, yeah, look, the referee putting on a black jersey and helping out Damien McKenzie to scoot in under the post. It's awesome because it gives us that opportunity, as we talked about last night, to put our tinfoil hats on and talk about conspiracy theories. Yeah.
No, but what's weird about, because we usually talk about like the Northern Hemisphere referee helps the Northern Hemisphere team and vice versa with the Southern Hemisphere. But in the first and the third tests, when the All Blacks got to it was English referees in both games. So we have to throw that theory away at least for now.
That's what I said I think it was last night or one of the shows. I said exactly the same thing. You know, this whole referee conspiracy theory usually works when it's the Southern Hemisphere referee benefiting a Southern Hemisphere team. This is actually around the other way. Yeah, look, the Irish series I think was in general was a big highlight too. Ireland, Wales, not necessarily because of the quality of the game, but I think the intenseness and the closeness, and I think everybody was wanting to see a good ding dong battle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for all, I love like beautiful champagne rugby. It's really, really beautiful to watch. But I would say like the essence of my love to rugby is still like in a really tight contest. You really want 2 guys or 30 guys going up against each other and really, really edging it out for the last few inches, and that's this series for sure delivered. A little bit common to the Lions series last year too. I mean, it was, especially the last test in the Lions series last year was not like top-notch quality, but I mean, we were all sitting on the edge of the seat because,
Ashwin and I were, because obviously the seats are so small at Eden Park that you've got no other choice. Sorry, just thought I'd subtly say that we actually were there for that game.
Yeah.
What was the host's favourite moment of the weekend?
Well, I don't know if it was
Apart from
England.
Obviously, England getting the win was fantastic. And one of the things that I've been told off by some people on Twitter, asking we were too harsh on Cipriani. That if Bowden Barrett had done what Cipriani had done with that kick through, it would have been skill. But because it was Cipriani, there was a bit of luck there. I'm not sure I agree. If we saw Bowden Barrett do that one, we'd also go, "Oh, that was close." But either way, that clearly was the moment for a lot of people at this weekend. Was that Cipriani kick through? I actually asked this question on Twitter. I just realised I haven't got. Let me get my tweet. Or actually, did I do the winners and losers? No, winners and losers. I've got lots of tweets to give us some feedback on.
Are we moving on right away?
We're not moving on yet.
Yes, we are. If you're going to, this is the second subject.
I'm just saying I'm confused as to what I have on Twitter. I don't have anything on Twitter for this, but I think Japan nilling Georgia, that was really impressive for me. That result. So you've got it.
That was good England.
Pardon?
That was good England. Nilling.
Nilling, absolutely. Good English. Absolutely good England. Nilling. So now you've got to be impressed by Japan. That was definitely up there. So that's that's probably my moment of the weekend. So a lot of people's will be definitely Cipriani's kick through was up there. I think a lot of people north of the border would have been very happy with how Scotland bounced back after their loss to the USA and beating Argentina quite comprehensively in that first 20 minutes. So I think there was some lovely rugby there, and I think the Americans would say that seeing off their northern neighbours in such fashion would be probably their big moment. So there were some the problem I think really was that of the three test series, there were three tests. Two of them were wrapped up already and dealt with, which made it a bit of a non-event weekend. Where there was only one of the test series that's still alive, which was the Australia Island one, whereas the New Zealand, France, and South Africa, England had already been sorted out, and it was just really bragging rights at the end that they were playing for. To me, I think that was a problem with this weekend was that the test series didn't go full length, I think.
Well, I have one little interesting stat to see here because I don't think it's ever happened before. If you look, there were 13 games between teams from the Rugby Championship and the Six Nations in this June window, and 7-6 to the Northern Hemisphere. Has that ever happened before?
Yeah, no, good point. Yeah.
Northern Hemisphere won 7 games. Southern Hemisphere won 6.
I don't think. So
you want me to put them all up for you?
Sorry. Okay, I was
Argentina.
No, I was forgetting the
Wales Springboks.
Wales Springboks in Washington DC. That one didn't really count. But yeah, okay, yep. No, that's
impressive. It counts. It was a test, man.
That's
which is. I mean,
that's a great tweetable. I'll have to tweet that. I'll tell you.
No, but I'll tell you one thing that was quite different this year's, for us, our June internationals, is that this is good England again, but more stronger teams came down than usually come down. You know what I mean? Yep. There's stronger teams down this time than they normally do.
No, I mean, not like but I would say there's a general trend, especially since the last World Cup, that the Northern Hemisphere team sends stronger teams down south for these June tests. It's not perfect yet. I would only say it was Ireland who really went for it full strength. I mean, I would wish that France could stop the league a week or two earlier, and really prepare, especially when you're going down to New Zealand, because it's pretty much a suicide mission to go down to New Zealand like the way we did. Yeah, it is. Or Himmelfahrtkommando, as you say in German.
I don't know. I don't think that the Northern Hemisphere teams have been sending down weakened side. I think that's a relic.
Yes, we have. I mean, look at the last England tour to New Zealand, two completely different teams from the first and second test.
So I don't know. I think that's a relic for the past. I think they do try and send down. I think actually this year, compared to the year after the Rugby World Cup, that actually there were weaker sides. Scotland were definitely not fielding a full strength side.
Yeah, but they didn't play in a rugby championship team except Argentina in the last game.
Wales again, they rested a lot of players.
But they didn't have a real test series.
Eddie Jones was talking about England missing 20 players.
Well, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, that's a bit blah blah blah.
I think Herman, what you're meaning to say is fiddly dee potato.
I would say 10.
We discussed this last night and said that's not acceptable behaviour, Ashwin. Jeez.
I'm only channeling my inner Phil Kearns. That's all.
But we don't have to go in like the super details where like who was the strongest. But I think there's a general trend where taking these June Test series slightly more serious up north, and overall slightly better teams, and also overall they also perform slightly better, actually much better than we've done before. Because if you take out the All Blacks and the stats between Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere since the last World Cup, it's like total domination for the Northern Hemisphere.
Oh, yes.
Real total domination.
I mean, South Africa and Australia really have struggled since the last Rugby World Cup. And it's only really been this year that they've actually kind of resurrected themselves in South Africa has done. Whereas I still think, well, actually, this is moving on to actually the winners and losers of this June window. So, I mean, one of the winners has got to be South Africa, the fact that they've getting those 2 wins over England. But I do still, I would put an asterisk next to it because I think Rasmus Rasmussen has got some considerable pressure on him to transform this side, and I think that's causing him some selection headaches. Because whilst yes, he's allowed to select players from Europe, he's also expected to have percentages ethnically within the team. And I think we saw that between the second and the third test in the fact that what one of the question marks was, well, why weren't these 2 centres playing earlier? More the question was before the first test, and as Andre, who's not in the chat, pointed out, they're both white guys. Now, as soon as they came back into the side, we saw that Pollard and Willie LaRue were dropped. So coincidentally, 2 players of coloured players and 2 white players left the team, and 2 coloured players and 2 white players came into the team. So
I can sort of see the point there, Paul, but I think it's stretching it a little bit. You know, we have only wrapped up the series. Rassi has to try the other guys, and Gallant, who's played fullback, has been awesome this season in Super Rugby, but he get a shot for a starting test when the series already wrapped up. I don't think that's too far-fetched to mix in the race issue in that. I mean, I'm not a fan of the quotas, but I think we should be careful to, as soon as we see how any kind of mixing up of the lineup and the white and black guys, it's a quota, you know. And also I think from all the comments from it is there, it is what it is, you know, it's not going to go away. And Rasmus, all his comments publicly, he's totally dedicated working with this. He will never ever whisper one complaint about it ever. You will never hear him say that. So I mean, and again, you have all seen Gerland play. Gerland, Gerland, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he has an awesome season. I mean, it's not that far-fetched, but he got to start in an already wrapped-up series. And Willie LaRue has just played a full European season and also going to play the Rugby Championship.
Yeah, I tend to agree in the fact that you have to sort of say, hey, look, at the end of the day, it is what it is. There's no point every time it appears that it could have been an issue to sort of talk about it. It's just the way it is, and that's the way it's going to be. It's not going to change. If anything, it might go the other way, so to speak. But at the end of the day, it's not going to change, and that's the parameters that they will select their sides amongst, and the parameters that they will play their teams in. Yep,
and they do need to transform. They can't have an entirely white team. Don't get me wrong. But I just say, well, I think there is the caveat around how they have stepped forward. I do think there's that quite what his best team is and who what the best combinations are is still very much up for question in South Africa. But they are looking much better than they have done than they did last year. So they're definitely one of the winners.
Actually, last year we won 3-0 against France. Looked really good. I mean, the wheels came off a little bit later in the season.
Well, maybe that's the thing. Maybe in November we'll see a reflection of it.
Then we'll see.
Again. We'll see. So that's one of the winners. Archie, why don't you pick a winner next?
Winners?
Yeah, the winners. We're talking about the winners and losers of the Juniors Nationals. So pick a winner.
Oh, jeez. Oh, Japan. Hey, yeah, absolutely. I think if you want to go at that extreme, if we're tying it into the sort of that our rugby championship versus Six Nations type scenario, then really it's going to be Ireland that were the winners. They maintained and sort of strengthened, their position as number 2 side in the world. And yeah, basically I'd say it'd be Ireland.
That's the first time Ireland has ever had a 3-test series against Australia, which is kind of amazing. And they won it.
They've matured as a nation. They've progressed to a stage where they're worthy of a 3-match series against Australia.
Basically, now they're better than Wales, so Wales don't get the 3-match series anymore. And
they get a 2-match against Argentina.
But speaking about Wales, they got to be one of the winners too. I mean, they've sneaked up to a 3rd place in the world rankings and have left all their big guns at home and still get good result against both Springboks and Pumas. I mean, they're sitting nicely 1 year out for the World Cup now, Wales.
Yeah, they are. There's got to be a question mark actually now as to have they actually left their first choice halfback pairing, or is this now the first choice halfback pairing? So have we seen a changing of the guard in some of these positions? Maybe we won't find out until November, but we'll see.
That's a good problem to have.
Oh, very good. And the biggest winners possibly are the USA. The USA now are on the longest winning streak of any international team currently. So they've got the same number of wins as the All Blacks, I think it is at the moment. So the USA, with their wins over Russia, an absolute dominating win over Russia.
But that's what we expect from our Olympic champions.
So they were definitely winners, getting that big win over Russia, sneaking it over Scotland. But hey, they got a tier 1 scalp, which Georgia don't have, and then finally finally getting that the expected comfortable win over Canada as well. And this is the first time that the USA has ever fielded a fully professional squad, which shows you how they're progressing with Major League Rugby. So let's move on to some of the losers. Actually, we haven't even mentioned the All Blacks. The All Blacks won 3-0. But actually, would you consider perhaps to be a loser out of this window rather than the winner?
No, status quo more for me. But
pretty much, yeah.
But on an individual level, I would like to point out some winners in the All Blacks. You talked about yesterday, and if I can pat myself on the back, I talked about this all during the series.
Well, actually, I'm going to stop you right there, sir, because we're not going to be talking about. We have a whole hour to talk about All Blacks tomorrow. So no, we're not going to. We will go in depth into individual players tomorrow for the All Blacks. So no, we haven't got time for that tonight.
But we can give it like a little cliffhanger.
Give a teaser.
You can name one.
Yeah. Scott Barrett.
So we'll go into in depth as to how Scott Barrett has improved tomorrow night. So join us.
He's improved beyond recognition, I would say. He looked just as good as Sam Whitelock for 3 tests in a row.
And you're getting in.
Yeah.
We're trying to give a cliffhanger here, and you just go and give all the details away. Jeez, you're just ruining it.
Yeah, I'm so greedy. I know. I want it all.
So join home and myself. Hopefully, we'll also have Steve tomorrow night, and maybe Ashwin. We'll see if he turns up.
No, cricket meeting tomorrow. Sorry, so I'll definitely be out tomorrow.
Cricket meeting.
I've got to go help vote some people in.
So tomorrow night we'll go through the All Blacks in depth. I think the actual All Blacks brand may have been tarnished a bit, and not through any fault of their own, but because of the refereeing. And there's definitely been a lot of outcry.
It's the commentators and the haters that basically lit up the switchboards. Basically,
I don't see All Blacks so much as a loser. I see more of a sport of rugby as a loser. That this has happened 3 tests in a row. It's very, very unfortunate.
And you can't blame the referees because it's the IRB sending mixed messages to what they're supposed to be doing. And, when you look at from the second test, and Ings Gardner gets thrown under the bus by the IRB, how is he supposed to go out in the next game and feel confident about what he's supposed to do and how he's supposed to rule when he rules by the rule book and gets told, "Oh, you're wrong," but that's okay. That's okay, Angus. Don't worry about it. But you were wrong.
For me, the issue is so much bigger because this has been going on for so long in so many tests and even in Super Rugby games. But it's pretty much impossible to ref rugby these days. It's the whole setup today with the 2 assistant referee and one head referee on the field is suited for a much slower game that was played 40 years ago. They need more eyes. They need more eyes. And the next part of it also, they need much more, but Steve Hansen is bang on. They need much more clarification and simplification about the laws of the game too. And
so Herman's promoting.
So
Herman,
are you promoting a NFL style, several referees around with flags to throw in?
No, not like that. But I want at least one more head referee. I want two head referees on the field, at least. Probably 4 assistant referees on the side of the field, and I also want them all to work as a team. That you don't switch with the referees you're working with like we do now in rugby. That you walk on the line for one game, and then you go in the middle for one game, and you change partner for the next test series or the next test game. No. It should be the same team who always work together. So you're basically building. But this is what we actually are doing in NFL in many other sports, where the whole ref team is working together. Because now it's all, you can sort of see that it's they don't want to undermine each other right now. Referees, they're not like a tight unit, and also they don't want to undermine each other. Look like they want to like pull down the pants on one of the colleagues. But if you work as a team and your only team as this ref team is your only aim is to ref the game as fair as possible, you wouldn't give SHIT about correcting your colleague. No, that's wrong. You would say right away. I saw it like this. But now I say there's a lot of hesitation going on there. I mean, how many times haven't we heard like TMOs asking like the referee say what he says and the TMO goes, are you sure? Are you happy with that?
Happened on Saturday.
You can sort of sense, and you sense that the TMO wish like to say, no, I'm sorry, mate, you're going to make the wrong call and this is the way it should be.
Yep. TMO had to tell the French referee on Saturday, the game's over. No, the game's over.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a great example, but it's still an example of how the TMO's telling the referee what
but he has to. I mean, in that situation, he really has to, but that's an extreme one. Yeah. But so I think I'm a little bit worried about rugby here in this regard, especially because when the big stage is coming up next year when the World Cup and when the whole world is going to watch again, because we have to admit, like what we're doing right now, watching Super Rugby and some test series, the whole world is not watching. So it's not like that big fuss. But if what's going on right now in rugby, if that's going to happen on the biggest stage, it's gonna blow in the faces. The game is gonna seriously lose a man. But maybe it needs to blow up at the World Cup before real changes can happen. Maybe that's what it takes, because it seems there's some suits, an old boys club sitting and thinking everything is pretty alright. No need to change anything.
Yeah,
the only way for them to see that is if it blow up in their face in the World Cup, like completely blow up in their face in the World Cup.
So a few things. One, I agree. I think that the World Rugby and particularly the Tier 1 nations are far too complacent in their administrations as to what needs to happen and where rugby needs to go. I think that Steve too may be getting woken up by Hansen. Currently hearing some of the comments there about how refereeing needs to change. So I think maybe New Zealand are getting a bit woken up, but I think on the whole, the Tier 1 administrations are way too complacent. I disagree with you on having 2 head referees. I think you have to have one guy who is in charge and a bunch of assistants. Now, you can have those assistants on the pitch or on the sideline or wherever they might be, but I still think it comes down to the one guy is the final arbiter and he is the guy in charge.
If push comes to shove, I agree with you, and you need someone who is responsible. But if there's two guys on the field, they have to work as a tandem. They have to always be the same team pretty much.
Yep.
And you sort of assume even if you were three guys on the field at the same time, there is one who's going to have a final say if you disagree with each other, for sure. You have to have that.
Yep.
But the understanding has to be that they will work as a team all the way,
Yep, and it's how hockey works. And hockey has two officials on the pitch, as an example. Field hockey, that is, not ice hockey.
Ice hockey has it too, my friend.
I don't know how many.
Ice hockey even four. We have two head referees and two linesmen.
There you go. I didn't know how many ice hocky had. I know that field hockey has two. So
basketball have three judges, also the same team, always working with each other.
And I say the idea of having teams, I see the benefits of that. I think some rotation would be required, but I do understand where you're coming from. Working. I mean, just like rugby teams work, the difference between the Barbarians and a team that plays together regularly is they know how each other acts, they know how each other talks. Two referees that I'm pretty sure like working with each other are Nigel Owens and Wayne Barnes. Having heard them talk separately, they're two guys who respect each other. They're two of the best referees in the world, which helps obviously. But you can see them when one of them's on the line and one of them's actually the centre. You can see how they talk to each other. That they're comfortable with each other. Because they have done they've both got a lot of games under the belt. They've both refereed a lot of games together, and they know each other very well. So definitely familiarity helps. An interesting thing by Math74 in the chat: in National League 1 last season, assistant referees weren't allowed in some cases to draw the ref's attention to fouls unless he asked. Wow.
Yeah. That's stupid.
Which competition is that?
National League 1, so I'm not sure where Math74 is from, but National League 1 sounds like the UK. But that sounds like beneath the rugby champ. So we're talking amateur rugby at that stage, rather than professional rugby.
Yeah.
So, but what about the idea of a bunker rather than having separate?
100% for it. 100% for it.
All the bunker is basically it's obviously multiple TMOs in a room. But the setup is they're set up nowhere near the ground. They're even in a different city. It's just it's a way to actually make the system work, because you can't duplicate a bunker scenario at every ground. So you have the bunker set up in one city where all the feeds go into, and you have the three people in that room. So, that's all the bunker is the fact is that you've got those three TMOs set up somewhere, because logistically you can't set it up at every game.
What I want to add there, Ashwin, is that what you also get will be the same TMOs watching, so you will get consistency from the TMOs. Now you have different TMOs in different ground, which is huge for me. You can get the predictability a little bit more and the consistency that when you see it yourself on TV, this is what the TMO is going to call here. Because now, frankly, it feels like lottery sometimes.
It's interesting. We're talking about all this technology-based systems to help get the decision right, and the number one sport in the world is going through the same issues in terms of consistency using technology.
Here we go down the football. Oh, dear me.
But I want to add something, because as most of you know, I'm working with football and I'm watching every game in World Cup stock. It has been far from perfect so far. We call it VAR in football. Yep. But the way it works in football so far, it works so much better than it does in rugby, which is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. This is the first try on the big stage, and they get it right so many more times than rugby does. And what's the real thing that really annoys me about this, it is when we get to the TMO or the VARs in football, when they send the check to the referee, they have already prepared. This is the picture you're going to watch. These are the three angles you're going to watch. He watching once, bang, decision made within 30 seconds. Because what you see in rugby so many times, you can see on the first replay, you say, okay, he stepped in touch. You see it, and still they're going to watch it from 6 other angles. It infuriates me every time. I mean, it's
so true. It's just like, why do you need to see another angle for?
Yeah, I mean,
Now, okay, and I guess part of this comes down to also is perhaps changing the level. So, if the TMO has spotted something, then perhaps does he have to show the referee, or can you just tell the referee, "Hey, ref, this guy hit him high. It's this," and actually tell him the decision rather than actually telling him, because if the assistant referee sees something, the referee will go to the assistant referee. The assistant referee will tell him what happened, because there's no replay. Because obviously the assistant referee is a human being, not technology, and the assistant referee will tell him what happened, and the referee will take his word for it and will apply the law as per the assistant referee tells him if he hasn't seen it.
But I think you contradict yourself to what you said before, Paul. There needs to be one person in charge for the final decisions,
and that's the man with the whistle in the middle.
Yeah.
But just going back to your assistant touch judge, right? Exactly right. Guy walks in with his flag and says, "I just saw number 6 clip number 7 around the head." And it's just like, the referee will go to him, "So do you think we need to look at that on the big screen?" "Yeah, probably."
Yeah, but this is also annoying.
On the big screen, even though that confidence isn't there to say, "That's the call, I've made it." And the referee's just asking him, saying, "Do you want to bring it up?" He can say, "No, I know what I saw, and we can go with that decision." But he doesn't have that confidence to do it.
Okay, let's discount here. Let's go for games where we don't have the TMO, where there isn't the TMO. Then the assistant referee says he hit him around the head. So what is that? Are you recommending a yellow card or a red card? And you'll go, "It was a yellow." Okay, bang, I'm giving a yellow. So the referee still has the final say. He can turn around and go, "No, I think you're a lying cheat," but he's not going to, is he? Because he trusts and to the same degree, he needs to trust the TMO rather than having to speed the game up. Because we have two problems with the TMO. One is the amount of time we lose, and two is them getting the decision wrong, even with TMO.
Yeah.
There's not much we can do about the second one, apart from just trying to ask them to be better. But the first one we can cut down the amount of time by if the TMO has gone check, then he's seen it several times from different angles, and he just says, "My recommendation is this." And if the referee hasn't seen it, then he gives it. If the referee has seen it, he can say, "No, I think you're wrong. I saw this. Therefore, I'm going to continue."
Yeah. I mean, another thing also I've been watching so far in the Soccer World Cup is that I have to say, they haven't got it all right yet, but they are like in a very short time way ahead of rugby, which is annoying. And that is when it's goal scoring opportunity and there's suspicion of foul player offside. Instead of calling off again, which we also see at rugby a lot, we suspect it's a forward pass and call forward pass, and instead we let the play out, and then you go and check it if it was a forward pass or not, or if it was offside or not. And this is also something we do way too little in rugby. Way too little. If you're not 100% sure it was a forward pass or any kind of foul play, let them play it out. Let them play. Let them see if they can score a try.
Yep.
Totally.
But I mean, is part
going back to the losers?
No.
We're talking about the losers now.
You just ruined my flow. I was just about to.
Oh, sorry, go Flo.
Oh dear. See, Herman had been trying to teach me this whole TV thing and how you do present things, and I was all lined up to say, is the whole problem with this because actually rugby is all about cheating and just pulling question 5 seamlessly. And I was there.
Bam!
I was on point, and you ruined it.
Paul, shall we save the cheating question for next week, and you give you a new shot?
Yeah, we can. Any other losers from this?
Well, we haven't actually talked about the biggest loser, and we're not talking about weight gain or anything like that here. It's Argentina. Argentina surely has to be the biggest loser out of the June International Series.
Yep.
I mean, so much expectation, not hype isn't the right word, but, momentum from the Jaguares coming through, and it all goes flat.
Yep.
And in fact goes backwards, and in fact loses the coach.
Yeah.
So what is going wrong with Argentina? Why have they gone backwards?
Well, shouldn't we save that for question 4?
I was just, again, I'm just trying to keep the conversation flowing and go into the question 4.
You've got a shot.
Oh, dear.
Okay. What's going wrong with Argentina? I mean, there's several issues with Argentina. I mean, it's been fairly obvious that the coach Hurkacz has lost the dressing room, and he's probably been it for some time. And it was painful to watch this because it's rare you see in rugby the players are like trying to get rid of a coach, but it was fairly obvious they were not playing for him, and they were not going to give him any kind of results or extra grit for him. And obviously, if you have that kind of situation between the coach and the players, it's going to go backwards fast. And but the other thing I think we all know, it's about their selection policy. It has backfired spectacularly on them. They only select players from the Jaguars, and talked about it.
This is part of the problem, isn't it? That they actually is that they flipped and flopped on their selection policy this season.
But
this year, I mean, let me finish. God, this. But the way a podcast works, sorry, listeners.
Is that you talk, everyone listens, and when you ask questions, you talk.
Let me take my co-presenters to one side here and let's explain to them how this works. It's not a normal conversation. It's one person talks, you make 1 point, then the other person talks 1 point, and you take it in turns. That's how we do this. That's how we're supposed to do this thing. Anyway.
You need cards.
You're hosting, Paul. You should make your guests talk and you host.
Yeah, but I know more than you two, so it's not fair.
No.
So, the selection thing, obviously, so the beginning of this year, they said, from the next 2 years, we're going to select players from Europe as well. And then immediately, Sanchez goes, what? I can go to Europe, earn lots of money, and still play for the Pumas? Yes. Right, I'm off, bye. And they're like, oh, hang on a second, we're going to lose all our players. And so they flipped and went, no, actually you have to play for the Jaguars to play for the Pumas. And it was like, and I think that also upset the players with the whole, the whole administration. Again, that they make your mind up. You go one way or the other, but this idea of flipping and flopping isn't going to work. And I think that also caused some off-field angst as well.
Yeah. But there's more to it than that, Paul. I went add from my best Argentinian source. What he said, and also what affected this was from the Sansar strategy meeting, but we haven't heard that much about. But one of the questions that came up there was from 2021. They asked the UAR, like, how many of your Jaguars players have you contracted for the 2021 season? And they had 0. And they said, okay, that's going to be a problem because we're talking about how we're going to build Super Rugby in the future. So they have to right away starting negotiating with pretty much all the players in the squad. And one way of keeping them back home is to keep them to keep the Pumas carrot for them. That's but this also just confirms what you said. You can't use the selection policy rules and so on as go back and forth to try to solve problems short term. They have to make up their mind once and for all. Is Pumas going to be our strongest team, no matter what, or are we going to use Pumas like as our test Jaguars team? And it's pretty obvious that using the Pumas as a test Jaguars team hasn't worked. So, but also on the upside, I read today from another Argentinian source, Paul Tate from American Rugby News. It's a good site if you want to read about America's rugby. He said now but I don't know what to take about it. He stated like very firmly that now they have confirmed that Pumas will select European players for the Rugby Championship.
Wow, that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And
the rumor is that going to put the cap on it for Rugby Championship. We're going to have 5 European players in the match day 23.
So one of the things that they tried to do before when they came into Rugby Championship initially was they would pick European players either for the June internationals or for the Rugby Championship, because the European clubs said, hey, you can't have them playing in both because they'll get no off-season. So
that's not entirely correct, Paul. I'm sorry to interrupt. They are. If you look at the laws of player release, so the Rugby Championship is in a designated test window. That was like the key thing for Sansar to allow the Pumas to be involved in Rugby Championship. They would never have allowed them in unless they were able to pick for players in 2012. And this rule still stands, as you know, because Springboks can pick also the European players for Rugby Championship.
That rule was there, but the Argentinian Union made an agreement with the European clubs they would do one or the other. They wouldn't pick them for both.
Yeah,
but that was 2012 to 2014, or 2015, sorry, for those 3 years. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go from now, because the flip side is, will European clubs want to sign Argentinian players who are going to be away for the Rugby Championship and away for the November internationals and away for the June internationals, and have no off season and therefore need to have a rest during the season? So there is a flip side there as to which players how much they'll make themselves available to Argentina once they're in Europe. A bit like the situation that basically the Pacific Islands have, because they don't
and South Africa are going to have that now too,
and South Africa does as well. And so it will be interesting to see how they're going to do that. Now, Rasmus Rasmussen has already said that what he's trying to do is build that he doesn't actually want to be picking his first 15, and he doesn't want to pick his European players all the time, because he's trying to build an extended squad to go to the Rugby World Cup with, and to cover injuries and things. Hence, Vermeulen, I believe he's got an injury as well, but hence he's already been told he will not be playing in the Rugby Championship.
But he doesn't have a contract in Europe anymore, Wayne Vermeulen. This is all for his own reason, that he want to rest his body to be ready for the World Cup next year.
We have to wait. Well, I mean, there's rumours he may be going to Bath, or he may be going to the Bulls, he may be going to... there's all sorts of places where he may or may not go to. He may go to Japan. There's a lot of rumours going around as to what he will or won't do.
But he doesn't have a contract to a club right now, at least. That much.
No, he doesn't. You're right. But also, Rasmus isn't going to be playing his entire... Isn't going to be selecting his players all the time. He's going to rotate or do some rotation around that.
So, let's back the truck up here. Dwayne Vermeulen doesn't have a contract, but he's not going to play in the Rugby Championship.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. No, but he's been playing pretty much non-stop for 2-3 years now. So it makes sense that he rests himself up, because next season is the big one. But it's a bit disappointing, because I know you're a hardcore All Blacks fan, Ash. But when Vermeulen is one of the guys you want to see go up against All Blacks.
Yeah, exactly. and the fact that he's been playing so well against the English, and obviously it's not the fact that it's the All Blacks, it's the fact that the All Blacks are number one, and so you want to see the guys that are up and coming, or teams that are improving to test themselves against the best team, and that would be the opportunity for the Rugby Championship. That's what we want to see, know?
Well, I totally understand you. From a neutral's perspective, it's exactly the same, because there is no denying that when the last 10 years, the best rugby games, like the top rugby games, has been between the All Blacks and the Springboks at certain occasions. That's when the real show comes on, and we all want those.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Going back to the Argentina piece, do you see Mario Ledesma taking over as the Argentinian rugby coach, or do you think it's too early for him and they should get sort of an interim player, an interim coach in to cover for the Rugby World Cup?
I think Herman's frozen up there, but such a hard one to know, and it's like the French, anything can happen day type scenario, isn't it? You just don't know what's going to happen. There's talk about Ledesma coming in. As you said, his coaching experience is pretty thin, but then he probably have the respect of the players. But we've seen other teams, that have the respect of the coach, but it doesn't mean that the coach is any good. So... yeah, it's a tough one, really. And without knowing all the Argentinian coaches, I wouldn't want to hazard a comment on that. I don't know, would Argentina? They don't look outside of their local players to make their teams. Would they look outside of the Argentinian coaching stocks for a coach?
So far they haven't done. From history, I can't think of any foreign coaches they've had. As head coach at least, but if I was Mario Desmond, I think I would suggest that they find somebody to cover and cover the Rugby World Cup, and then him take over after Rugby World Cup. It does seem like a bit of a poison chalice to try and take the team on now through till then. So that's what I mean. He's doing a great job with the Jaguares, but I think another season would be good before he took over the Pumas, personally. So looking at some of the other losers from this, I'd say Georgia were one of the losers. They got the win over Samoa, but lost to Fiji, and then lost to Japan as well, to 0. And I think that Georgia's stock has dropped a bit during this window.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Georgia because I suppose a lot of us were sort of hoping the progression of Georgian rugby would happen because, I mean, let's face it, we want to see more teams that are competitive at a higher level. I think if we actually analysed it and we look at it as we talked about last night, we've actually talked about it a few times. You've got a professional forward pack and an amateur back line. And as long as that's going to carry on, that Georgian rugby team's not really going to go far unless they come up against either wet conditions or really wet conditions, or they're going to come up against a time that just has a really poor forward pack, and then they can't secure the ball. And
England, winners, losers, the same. Where do you see them sitting?
I don't think England were losers. I think England were losers before they got to South Africa. Well, let's face it, before they got to South Africa and the state that they got there in, we were sort of expecting 3-0, and it was rather a strange series because in the first two games, England sort of actually shot out to an early advantage and a good early advantage, and then sort of got run down and maybe unlucky in some situations. But, I wouldn't say England were unlucky. If you do believe Eddie Jones, he's missing a lot of key players, and there are a few key players, even if you don't agree with his 20, there are a few key players that are missing. So, no, I wouldn't say England are losers. No, not in the sense that you look at an Argentina who totally collapsed, and as you sort of mentioned, Georgia, who there were people with expectations on.
Yeah, I don't think so. A lot of people have meant, Jack's calling England losers, think that they were the losers in there.
But he's just trolling you, you know that.
The Maul Over Rugby Pod on Twitter, reckon, had England said more questions than answers. They mentioned also Argentina as well as going backwards. To me, I think that actually that England, as you say, they had some very good starts. They were missing a couple of players, and I think they did okay, and they won the game in the end. And England is definitely going through a transformation at the moment. There is a change of the guard, and they've had Tom Curry and Johnny May really have stepped up. So they've got some good building blocks to come through. So I don't think
you mentioned
as everyone's saying, as everyone's sort of
no, not at all. You mentioned there's more questions than answers, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just means that there's some questions there that need to be answered. It more comes back to the fact is, when you've raised those questions, do they have the answers to those questions? That's what it comes down to, because they might have those. I mean, this is like, okay, hey, look, there were question marks around their locks, but the answers might be sitting back at home because they've been injured or whatever, or the fact. So it's not a question of the questions are bad. Questions are bad for Argentina. Argentina totally collapsed. England hasn't totally collapsed.
Yeah,
you might have said that for Six Nations and the like, but not from the tour of South Africa.
The big problem for England is basically the questions they have are the same questions they had under Stuart Lancaster, effectively. What's the makeup of the back row? Which they still haven't answered. It's Billy Vunipola and two others, but who are the other two? And what is and that's only if Billy Vunipola can stay fit, which he doesn't seem to be able to at the moment.
Say that. Yep.
And then what is England's centre pairing? Because at the moment they only have one centre and they have two fly halves. So that kind of seemed to work for a while. It's kind of gone south through it now, but apart from, if they can get those two questions answered, then all the other pieces are pretty much there.
Can fall in. I mean, and you look at that, the centre pairing question. You know, that could be like, are we playing the right game plan if we're going to have two first fives playing? You know, first five second. There are many teams in history that have been successful by playing two first fives. You know, and they play a game plan to suit that team selection. So that could be part of the answer to the question.
It could be, as I say, but it's one of those questions that's been there pretty much now for getting on for 8 years. And the same for the back row question is, again, these are questions that have been around since, well, basically since after the 2011 World Cup and everyone left. So since 2012. So they've been around for a long time, these questions. So it is becoming Stuart Lancaster didn't manage to answer them, and Eddie Jones doesn't seem to have answered them either. That to me, that's the biggest problem for England.
You know, in their back row, the biggest issue that England have got in their back row, you have got someone in Billy Vunipola that you can build a back row around. The problem is Billy going to play?
Yes, well, that's true. So that's where they kind of sit. I wouldn't say Australia were losers. I think they showed signs as well. Even if they did.
Oh, look, we know what Australia's problems are. It's depth.
Yep.
That's it. I still don't think their second row is fantastic. I think they could do with something a bit more special in the second row, but basically, and that's in terms of the starting 15, that's really it. I think the rest of them not too bad, but I think it's the depth issue for them, especially first five and halfback.
Absolutely. So that's kind of the international window wrapped up and all done and dusted. And time. And so let's remind ourselves as to where we are with the Super Rugby. Super Rugby kicks off again this weekend. And let's do a quick run through as to how the three conferences stand. So the Crusaders are top of the New Zealand Conference, having played one more game than all of the others. The Hurricanes, Highlanders, Chiefs and Blues follow them. The Blues are basically out of it, whereas the other four teams are still in the playoff positions. Over in Australia, we have the Waratahs leading the pack 1 point ahead of the Rebels, who are in the playoff in the last playoff position. And then a 9 point gap back to the Brumbies, with the Reds and Sunwolves further back. So you've got to say pretty much that with only 3 games to go, the Brumbies, being 9 points behind, have got a long. It looks like they're probably all but gone now. And then over in South Africa, we have the Lions, Jaguares. The Lions have played an extra game than the Jaguares and are 6 points ahead. So if the Jaguares win with a bonus point, they can get within 1 point, making that very tight. Followed by the Sharks, Stormers and Bulls. And the gap between the Jaguares and the Sharks is 6 points. So not over and done with, but you've got to say the Stormers, with one having played an extra game and a further 3 points behind, are probably out of it. So the Stormers and Bulls are probably out of the reckoning, with just basically the question mark is around the Sharks, Jaguares and Rebels as to which to round out the to round out the playoffs, with perhaps the Chiefs on 37 points, so just 3 points ahead of the Jaguares and Rebels, potentially in a bit of trouble of getting caught because of their depending on what their fixtures are like. So that's a quick summary as to where things stand.
Look, I mean, yeah, I was sort of thinking there's obviously a lot of intrigue around jockeying for position in the New Zealand table, but for me the most interesting one is that coming back to our Argentinian friends, the Jaguares, what condition they come back in. Before this June international window, we were sort of expecting, with the momentum that they had, that they would sort of be looking to topple the Lions at the top of the South African table. Really going to be some question marks, talking of questions, there'll be some question marks around the Jaguares and what state they come back into Super Rugby.
Yeah, because they finished on a run of 6 wins. Now, when they come back, their first game back is the Stormers at home, which you've got to say is not a bad start. or a bad way for them to come back. The Stormers are pretty much out of this competition now, and having travelled, the Haggarais should be in a good situation there. Then, though, they face a couple of tough ones, travelling away to the Bulls and away to the Sharks to finish off. And that last game, if the Sharks manage to pick up a couple of good results against the Lions and the Stormers, then that last game between the Sharks and Haggarais could be a decider as to who makes it into the playoffs or who doesn't, which would make it really interesting.
So where is that being played? That'll be
in
Durban. Oh, it is Durban, yeah. It's the last game of the whole thing, too.
The last game of the whole thing. It could come down to that as to who. And that game is at 3:00 in the morning, New Zealand time, so I won't be watching it. I'll be catching the results in the morning. But yes, it could all come down to that last game in the last round to decide who gets through. The other
and odds are that it will.
And there is a good chance it will. You're right.
Oh, it'd be great for the competition if it does.
It will be, and then the other big question mark is between the Waratahs and the Rebels. The Waratahs on 35 points, the Rebels on 34 points. And if we have a quick look at their games, the first game up, Rebels versus the Waratahs in Brisbane. So, hang on, in Brisbane? No, that can't be true.
In Brisbane?
That can't be right. Versus the Waratahs in Melbourne.
Melbourne. Unless they're taking a game on the road to expand the game.
To the Reds territory. Yes, absolutely. I would like to say here that I'm reading this off the official Sanzar website as well. I'm not even gone to some the dodgy. They've got that wrong. So yes, that is obviously going to be a key game with them both being a point each side. And then one of the comments we talked about the Rebels was they had a good start to the season, but they were going to have a tough finish. They then have to travel away to the Reds and then away to the Highlanders, whereas the Waratahs get the Sunwolves at home, followed by the Brumbies at home. So you got to say the Tars have got a much better run in. Christian makes a good point that the Tars will be missing Hooper. But at the end of the day, would you rather play the Rebels followed by the Brumbies? The Rebels followed by the Sunwolves and Brumbies at home, or would you rather host the Waratahs and then travel away to the Reds and travel away to the Highlanders to finish? The Tars have definitely got the easier run home.
Yeah, so basically the Rebels are going to have to really target that Tars game at home to say, we've got to pick this up. This is a must-win for us if we're to have any shot, and then maybe go for a 50-50 on the last two games.
Yep.
And Christian says, though, taking Christian's point, that game against the Tars is made quite a bit easier by the fact that there won't be a Hooper to compete against.
Yep. It's not made, but will Genia be back for the Rebels? I've not seen the squads yet. So if Genia's not back for the Rebels, then
he's got a broken arm.
Well, there we go then. So, is the drop off between Hooper and his replacement bigger or smaller than drop off between Genia and Ruru?
I was thinking, who's the halfback at the? Oh, yeah, Ruru. More pork.
So yes. So I'll give you a prediction for free. I'll be back in the Waratahs to win against the Rebels.
Yeah, I'll be back in the Waratahs. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, saying that one of the Rebels, where their strength is actually their back row. They've got a really good back row that when they get their dander up, they seem to be able to. There's a good old fashioned word, dander. Get their dander up. They can really do some damage. But there's another 12 other guys that have to jump as well.
Yes. Now, and a lot of them can do, but the problem is if your halfback pairing is Ruru to Debrasini, good luck. And if your halfback pairing is Ruru to Hodge, again, good luck. Hodge is a decent player. Don't get me wrong. I quite like Hodge as a player. I don't like him as a fly half though.
Right.
He's not a first 5'8".
No.
And he's someone that maybe could eventually could become a first 5'8". He did play that at high school, and he has played it for the Wallabies. He's a Wallaby first 5'8" against Japan. But yeah, he needs a whole season or two at it.
He seems too stiff as a first 5. You know, he doesn't seem to have that sort of free flowing movement to him. I don't know. He just Yep.
So you can name your other 13 players whoever you feel like. If your halfback pairing is not up to scratch, you're going to have a hard day at the office. So which of those games this coming weekend? I'll just run through the games this coming weekend. So the Blues Reds at Eden Park, which I assume you'll be going to.
Yes, I am now. I am.
The Rebels host the Waratahs. Those are the Friday night games. We then have the Highlanders versus the Chiefs in Fiji, which means we do not have a 7:35 game in New Zealand on Saturday night. What are New Zealand males going to do, and females? Sorry, what are New Zealand rugby fans going to do with themselves Saturday night? It's going to be.
It's just his 50th birthday party.
Then the Friday night game in Australia is the Brumbies hosting the Hurricanes. We then travel up. Then the Sunwolves host the Bulls in their home location of Singapore. The Sharks then host the Lions, and we finish off with the Jaguares hosting the Stormers at 5:40 a.m. New Zealand time. Now, then the Jaguares can play at 9 o'clock or 7 o'clock our time. It's upsetting to me that they're playing that at a time that basically is too early for me to get up.
What's that about?
I'm guessing it's to try and fit into the South African time zones.
Oh, yes, schedule. Yeah.
Or it could be to try and avoid football World Cup games. I don't know, but it seems like a very early game for them.
True. Now, there's some good clashes coming up this weekend to get things started again.
There is. Now, everyone's a bit surprised that the Highlanders Chiefs is at 5:15 p.m. Now, I must point out, even though I am reading from the official website of SANZAAR, that they're not very good at getting their own facts right. So that could be wrong, but that's what's being said. They have got the timings wrong on this website before, but this is the official site, and so I believe it is a 5:15 kickoff for the Highlanders versus the Chiefs, but I could be wrong.
Cool.
We'll
lock that in.
So which game in particular are you looking forward to?
The Highlanders and Chiefs one will actually be for me in terms of jockeying for position on the New Zealand Conference table will be interesting. But when you look down the last two games, they're probably holding even more dance of the desperate type. Well, not quite dance of desperates, but more imperative for those South African teams to get to the top of the ladder. Makes a huge difference for them in getting those points. So the Sharks versus the Lions, and then Jaguares obviously wanting to make sure they win at home to keep putting the pressure on the Lions. So, as I said, Highlanders, Chiefs, but those last two games are also quite key in the greater scheme of things as well.
Yeah, and that Highlanders Chiefs one is big for the Chiefs because they've then got the Brumbies at home, which you'd expect them to win, but they then have they then finish with the Hurricanes at home, and as I say, they're not that far ahead of the Rebels, Jaguares, and Sharks. So there is a small possibility of the Chiefs getting caught if they kind of lose two of those three games. They could drop out of the finals reckoning. Unlikely, but there is that possibility. So yeah, it's a big game for the Chiefs. I think for the tension around the game than anything else, because I don't think the skill levels are going to be that particularly high. But the Rebels Waratahs game, your top two teams in Australia, only 1 point between them. It's a great one from a table point of view. As I say, perhaps not the best aesthetically to watch, but it should be a real grudge game in Australia. So that one should be should be a good one.
You don't really expect the Waratahs to run away with it?
You hope not, do you? But you hope that's going to turn into a big old arm wrestle with lots of drop balls, both sides very, very tense, and it come down to a last-minute kick for one on the other side. So I think from a drama point of view, I think it might be a good one. I say not from a skill level.
Yep. True.
Now, folks, I had promised myself beforehand that I would remember to stop halfway through or at periods during this show and remind you to hit the old like button, hit the old subscribe button if you're new here. But I have forgotten. So please, if you're still here, do please hit that like button and subscribe button, and tell all your friends as well to come and watch the show, because let's be honest, it has been a cracker, hasn't it? Whilst we didn't get on to that fifth question, we will try and get on to that one again next week.
Keep that suspense building.
The permanent fifth question, is rugby all about cheating? But Ashwin, why don't you let people know where they can get hold of you during the week if they want to talk rugby?
They can find me on Twitter at NZFatso, and I'll see you there.
Obviously, I'm Paul Go Home Driving Maul. So Driving Maul, hey, you're on the YouTube channel, or you're on the podcast. So do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any others. And also at Driving Maul on Twitter is the place where you can get hold of me. So thank you very much, and good night.